Hi. I can't hear anything, but hi.
Um,
Okay,
she said she would join a little bit after 6. So
good. Okay.
yeah, I think hopefully we can get people to come in by that time.
Do you want me to send out like an email or make an announcement or anything?
I mean, if we can get like the fishbowl to say like there's a speaker event or something,
Can you
that'd be good.
join? Can you join? Thank you. Okay. Okay. If you want, I can like make an announcement real quick.
Yeah, maybe an announcement like over the intercom or something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for coming. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
I
your
just wanted to
time.
be sure because oftentimes when I move my computer, it doesn't work. So I just want to be
No, yeah, we can hear you great. We will get started in
yeah.
about 5 minutes if that's
Yeah.
okay. We just have a couple
Oh
more
yeah.
people that are
Whenever,
joining.
whenever is fine. I just wanted to be
Great.
sure.
Thank you so much. Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. So today we have Miss Goodrich. She is from Pivot, Oklahoma, and will be speaking to you guys today about her work with the homeless community and how best you guys can help. Thank you so much, Miss Goodrich, for joining us today, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yes, thank you for having me, first of all. Again, my name is Jennifer Goodrich, and I am the CEO at Pivot, a Turning Point for Youth. I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay? Because I have a little PowerPoint.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
It says it's disabled.
I think we can,
Share
Ashley, if
host,
you don't
maybe.
mind.
Ah, there we go. Gotta use my glasses real quick. Okay, can you all see that? Okay, great. So again, I'm from Pivot, a Turning Point for Youth. I've actually been with the organization for 22 and a half years. So I know a lot about the history and a lot of the ways that we've changed over those years. So just a little bit about our history. We used to be known as Youth Services for Oklahoma County. And then we were established in 1972. So this is actually our 50th anniversary year. Serving young people in our community. Back in 2018, we decided to rebrand. So we rebranded to Pivot, a Turning Point for Youth. And some of the reasons why were, one, our name was really a barrier to a couple of different things. One, people in the community, we are a private nonprofit. And because of our name, people thought we were a government organization, that's how we were funded and that sort of thing. So we weren't getting the kind of support that we needed. And even more importantly, it was a barrier for the young people that we serve. So we really serve three key populations: young people in DHS custody and aging out of care, young people that find themselves in the juvenile justice system, and then young people experiencing some level of homelessness. So if you're already in a system and then you're referred to something like Youth Services for Oklahoma County, we found that it was a barrier because it sounds like more of the system, an extension of it, in collusion with the system and that sort of thing. So we did rebrand. It's been very well received, especially with the young people that we serve. And that's just a picture. There you go. Our mission statement is: we are a force for good, turning young lives around and setting their course for an empowered future. And those are great words. They look great on our wall and all our deliverables, but what does that really mean? So when we say we're a force for good, that means we use every team member, every volunteer, every technique, every skill, every resource to be sure that young people in our community get the best of what they deserve. Turning young lives around, we believe that no matter where you are in your journey, we can meet you where you're at and we can help change the trajectory of your life. So no problem's too big, no part of your journey is too far that we can't help you talk about what your goals are and help you turn around and get there. And then setting their course for an empowered future. The other thing we want to be sure we give the young people that we serve is hope. So that's what we see ourselves as. Our vision statement is that we believe that no youth should navigate life alone. And so what I would like to have you imagine for a moment is imagine that that's exactly what you have to do. And these are true situations of young people that come to us. So let's say you're a 16-year-old and your parents becoming incarcerated. And so everyone decides, hey, I'm going to go live with Aunt Susan. Your parent becomes incarcerated, you do, and 2 months later they say, get out. There's no current system in our state that tracks where kids of people who are incarcerated are. And so there's no way to ensure, hey, is that arrangement still working? Do they have the resources they need and that sort of thing? Or you're a young person that is, because of a mistake you made, you spent 18 months in a secure facility and you've done a lot of work, and in your heart and in your head, you're ready to return to the community and do all the right things, but you're returning to the same environment that got you there in the first place. Or say you are rejected by your family because of how you identify or who you love, and your family says, we're not going to tolerate that, and they kick you out. or more than 50% of young people who age out of the foster care system every year who find themselves homeless within the first 18 months. There's great services for young people who age out of care, but the problem is, imagine that you're a young person and you've been in foster care since the age of 3. So you're finally to 18, you see that, like, I'm going to be free of this system. You're not going to want to turn around and be like, let me sign up for some more of that. And that happens a lot with the young people that we serve. Or by the virtue of the fact that you turn 18, your parent says, it's all on you now. When we go through some of our services, we have a drop-in center and night sheltering service, and we literally have parents or caregivers that drive their young person up to our office on their 18th birthday and say, you're on your own. Or it's a situation where your parent has died and there's no family member to take care of you. We've had parents that have moved out of the state and left young people here to fend for themselves. So a lot of times there's a lot of myths about the young people that we serve, and it's all about they don't want to follow the rules and that sort of thing. And even though that's some of the situations, and we believe they also deserve help, it's really a multitude of reasons. And so what we do is we wrap around them in 5 key areas of housing and basic needs: education, employment, permanent connection, so healthy relationships, and then health and well-being. Research shows that if you address these 5 key areas, really for any young person, but especially those facing barriers, they're more likely to stay in school, therefore more likely to graduate, and then go on to positive post-secondary opportunities. And so that's why we surround them in these areas. So the first thing we're doing is we're looking at housing and basic needs, and housing might be a shelter or transitional living. Could be an apartment in the community. It could be a multitude of things, but we know that if you haven't eaten in a couple of days, or you don't know where you're going to lay your head tonight, you can't really worry about those other things, especially when it comes to people experiencing homelessness. A lot of times people think we'll just go get a job. And that sounds simple, especially in today's market, like you can literally probably go anywhere and get a job. But one, it doesn't pay enough to sustain what you need. And also there's a lot of barriers they face before they can even get there. And we'll talk some more about what those are. Okay, something's happened to my slides. Can you tell me what slide you can see what it says?
We see the 5 domains.
Okay, oh, here we go. Okay, thank you. And so these are all the programs, and we'll go through them. But another thing about our services is they're all integrated. So no matter how you enter, you have access to all of the things that we offer. So you might come through the counseling center, but for mental health or substance abuse services, but what we identify is you have housing instability, or you have come through our juvenile justice program. And again, we identify that you have other needs, you need counseling services, or you need basic needs met. And so no matter where you enter, again, we're doing that assessment, and then we're building a plan to address all 5 key areas. Some of the resources we have on our campus, we have, again, to meet those basic needs, we have pantries on site. So there's a picture of our food and hygiene pantry, and we have a clothing closet, actually 2 of them. Household goods, a shoe closet. We also have a prom and formal wear closet. We believe the young people that we serve deserve the same experiences as every other young person, and prom is one of those. We actually are, a lot of our young people in our shelter go to Emerson North, and they've already picked out everything. We've gotten them flowers, we've gotten a meal donated, that sort of thing, so they can have that experience. And so I also say, if the prom dress makes you feel good on any Tuesday, you're also welcome to have it. It doesn't have to be prom for you to have anything out of that closet. So we want to be sure that they can access it anytime they need it. There's great pantries across our city. Something different about ours is you don't have to prove you live in a certain zip code or meet any kind of qualifications. If you have a need, you can come to it at any time. All our pantries run primarily on community donation. So we have an Amazon wish list, a Walmart wish list, and we're changing it at all times based on what the needs of the young people we serve are. We also have a partnership with Oklahoma City Police Department. So it started out with truancy officers, and what they were doing was going out to homes and trying to figure out why kids weren't in school. And what they were discovering is that kids and families didn't have their basic needs met, right? So if I don't have food, again, or transportation's a barrier, or I don't have a uniform, or my uniform's not clean, I'm not going to school. And so what yes officers do, or the truancy officers, they're called yes officers now, they come to any one of our pantries, they obtain the items immediately for those young people and their families. They're building that bridge. It's a positive interaction with an officer. And then they're more likely to engage in other kinds of services that are offered to them because their needs are being met. Since October of 2020, we have served 471 young people through that program. We've opened it up to all patrol divisions. And again, it doesn't have to be you meet a certain requirement, they have access to it. They also made us aware of some specific items that they needed. So they needed lice kits, for example. Lice is not a medical issue, it's a hygiene issue. And so there are no resources in order to get lice kits. And you can't go back to school until you get that taken care of. So we stock those and we go through a lot of them. Another thing is air mattresses. If you're a young person at risk of being placed in DHS custody, for the very fact that you don't have a place to sleep, that's unacceptable. And so we provide those resources. We go through a lot of those as well. So they get their own bed space, they're up off the floor, and oftentimes that can keep DHS out of their lives. Also, we have a partnership with Variety Care, and we provide medical services on site, not only to the young people on our campus, but also to other partner or all our other clients and other partner agencies, because we understand that that's an area that's difficult to access. With Medicaid expansion, a lot more people qualify for services, but again, imagine you're a 16, 17-year-old living on your own with no family or parental support, making a doctor's appointment, filling out the paperwork, all of those things are barriers for them. And so to be able to have them right there, walk in with them, advocate for them, make them feel comfortable with somebody that works with us on a weekly basis has really broken down the barriers and has been able to get those young people those kinds of services. We provide counseling services. That's really the heart of where youth services or Pivot started, primarily for kids in the juvenile justice system, but it's really grown into being sure that we provide cutting edge trauma care. So I don't know if you all have heard of adverse childhood experiences, but there was some research done and they came out with this questionnaire called the ACE, and you can look it up online. It's a 10-point questionnaire. For everything you answer yes, every question you answer yes to, you get 1 point. As humans, we all experience some level of trauma, but these young people are experiencing layers and layers of it. So abuse, neglect, parent incarceration, parent divorce, physical, sexual abuse, those sorts of things. And what the research shows is the higher number of points you have, the more at risk you are for physical complications, psychological complications, that sort of thing. Because what happens when people experience that kind of stress or abuse, right? They try to find a way to cope with it. And oftentimes, one, stress itself breaks down the body, but also two, we take on maladaptive behaviors to try to deal with it. So whether that's alcohol or drugs or food or all of those sorts of things, we oftentimes damage our bodies because we're trying to deal with what that is. Most trauma happens at the hand of a relationship, and we believe we can best heal it at the hands of a relationship. And that's why those permanent connections are so valuable and important. And just for example, in our program supporting kids in independent living, that deals primarily with young people who are experiencing, they're unaccompanied minors, they're experiencing a lot of times couch homelessness, but also street homelessness. They have an average ACE score of 5.6. So out of that 0 to 10, they have on an average 5 to 6 of those key trauma experiences. In our drop-in center and night shelter that serves young people who experience street homelessness, their average score is 9. So again, you're expected to get a job, try to find housing, get your basic needs met and all of that sort of thing when you're constantly living in a fight, flight, or freeze situation, right? Because when we experience different things, we go right back to that survival mode and we're going to have fight, flight, or freeze. And that goes over all of the things that happen in life, right? So say I'm a young person And we do a lot of life skills training on, whether it's tying a tie or a job interview, all of those sorts of things. Just one example of where you can see that it still overlays all of the life is employment. So if I am an 18-year-old and I'm working at McDonald's and somebody yells in my face, right? I'm not going to respond as an 18-year-old. What trauma shows, or the research on trauma shows, that you're probably half your chronological age. So I'm not going to respond as an 18-year-old. I'm probably going to respond as a 9-year-old and back into that fight, flight, or freeze. So if I'm working and somebody yells at me and I fight by punching them in the face, probably not going to get to work there any longer, right? Or if I shut down because I'm frozen and I can't do anything, again, probably not going to be able to keep my job. Or if I run and never come back, for sure not going to get to keep my job. So again, we want to help equip these young people and help them understand, yeah, this is the reality, but it doesn't mean that you can't go beyond it. So building those coping skills, understanding what's happening to you when those triggers come along, right? So instead of punching someone out, saying to yourself, okay, I know what's happening. I need to get out of my survival brain and I need to do this. And so equipping them with what those skills are. We've done the ACE screening for a long time. Well, I'm a therapist by trade. That's where I started at Youth Services. And in doing it with young people, I think a lot of times it's very eye-opening. So it's not like, well, this is terrible for you. But a lot of them are like, oh my gosh, well, this makes sense to me finally. Or no wonder I do what I do. And so again, walking them through their stories of trauma and not focusing on why are you doing that or what's wrong with you, but really understanding what happened to you. We have a shelter it's called the Family Junction. It houses 12 to 17-year-olds. It's licensed by DHS, and we do take young people who are in DHS custody, but we have a growing number of community referrals. So again, these are young people in our community that are under the age of 18, that if it weren't for us, they would find themselves homeless, right? So it's situations where there is conflict in the home, or we have one young person who parents out of the picture, went to live with aunt, didn't work out, had nowhere to go. So sometimes we see kids for a couple of days or a couple of weeks because they're in between foster placements, but we have several young people that live there right now that have been there over a year. It runs 24/7. We ensure that they go to school. If they are of job age, helping them get jobs and that sort of thing. And then what's their transition after they turn the age of 18? Supporting kids in independent living. Again, this is the one that focuses on young people who are living unaccompanied. I think that's another myth. People think, well, if they're under the age of 18 and they have no parents around, certainly they would be in DHS custody, but that's just not the reality. The closer they get to the age of 18, DHS does a great job and they have a really big job, but they are looking out for the most vulnerable kids, right? So they're dealing with young people or little ones that are a year old, cannot fend for themselves at all. And then the system is overburdened. So if they know that they're in a place and they're being taken care of and supported by services like Pivot has, then they're less likely to intervene. So again, we wrap around them with case management services. We have rapid rehousing, which means we can help house them and pay for rent for up to 6 months, and all of those sorts of things. There was a law passed last year, and this is a real positive, that if you truly are unaccompanied, legally you can sign a lease and or sign yourself into shelter. That's the positive. The negative is there is no affordable housing right now for this population, or really a lot of different populations in our community. Our Community Intervention Center, or the CIC, is a facility where young people who are arrested but don't meet detention requirements come, and we can hold them up to 24 hours. It was really created about 20 some years ago in order for us to assist law enforcement. So previously, if an officer picked a young person up, didn't go to detention, they could spend all day looking for a parent or a caregiver. So now they bring them to us, they're back out on the streets within 15 minutes, and then we do everything else. What we found is, again, through that universal screening, we're finding young people who do not have stability in their lives. They don't have basic needs. They don't have housing. They have conflict. Most people don't commit a crime just to commit a crime. They're trying to meet a need. And we had one young person that came to the CIC, and after doing the universal screening, it was discovered that his mom had died of an overdose the year before. And because of the weather, they found him, he'd been living in a porta potty because he had no resources. He didn't know where to go. I mean, was just making it for a year. And they found him in the porta potty because of the weather. So again, we were able to, by asking those questions, be able to meet some of those needs and get him to the services that he needed. And we also in the CIC can take and need a supervision, which has allowed us to take runaways. And so oftentimes they're from Oklahoma City or surrounding areas, but also all across the United States. So we have been able to connect young people back to their families in Ohio, Nebraska, California, Texas, Florida. We had a situation recently where a young girl was talking on the internet with the love of her life, I'm sure, in California. And he offered to buy her a bus ticket so she could come out there. So she got the bus ticket. When she got to Oklahoma City, she had to purchase another one to do a transfer. And thankfully, the person at the Greyhound bus station was aware enough to be like, I don't think something is right here, and called the police. She was brought to the CIC and were able to contact her family in North Carolina, and they came and picked her up. So who's to say who that person was in California, but we all know that human trafficking is becoming an increasing problem, and that's probably what she was on her way to experience. And so that community awareness has definitely been helpful. And then also, before they were able to bring them to the CIC, they could only take them to a shelter, and those aren't lockdown facilities where this is. So again, it's a way for us to understand what their story is, and if they are experiencing homelessness, that we can have a pathway to other services. The Point is our newest program, and it is our drop-in center and night sheltering service for transitional age youth, 16 to 24. From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., young people can come, get out of the weather, hang out, get a snack. We have video games, movies, a computer lab. They can take a shower, wash their clothes, check out a locker to store things. They have access to all of the rest of our services, including our pantries, employment connection, education, evaluation, and then connection and those sorts of things. And then we have night sheltering services from 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. There's other shelters in our community that are great. But the necessity for this one is because, one, if you think about it, the difference between an adult technically is 17 to 18, and that can be one day, right? And so our shelter is specific to the vulnerability of that age group. And that's one of the reasons why we stay open till 10 a.m. So most of our young people work or go to jobs, education, that sort of thing. But if they can't, there's really no safe place for a young person to go until after 10. Malls aren't open, libraries aren't open, that sort of thing. Our ultimate goal is to secure enough funding to stay open 24/7, so that they have that kind of home base to be there. Its intent is emergency shelter. You know, we don't want anybody living in a shelter, but because the opportunities for affordable housing are so slim right now, we are seeing people stay there longer and longer, but we are helping them on that housing pathway. And again, they're working, able to save money, and work up to whatever that transition is. And then our newest program is our transitional living program. So we've had 2 transitional living apartments that are attached to our Family Junction shelter since 2003. Again, with our supporting kids in independent living, we've really seen the need for housing, knowing that there's no affordable or there's limited affordability, especially for this age group. We then started our tiny home community. And so we opened 3 tiny homes in October of 2019. We opened 3 additional homes in the summer of 2021. We are weeks away from opening 20 additional tiny homes. So we will have 26 tiny homes on our campus. They are between 280 and 320 square feet. They each have a nice sized bathroom, a kitchenette section, a little living area, and then a place for a bed. Some have closets, some don't. Some have a bathtub, some have showers. So they're all very unique. But it's a great living space that's manageable. And then also big enough so they don't feel crammed. We've already seen success. Our belief was that if we had them on our campus and they had access to all these services that would break down those barriers. We've already had young people, one lived there for a while and then transitioned into the military. Another, our first resident, I just saw him today actually at a conference. He lived there and then he transitioned to a rent house with some roommates. We've had another young person who lived there, graduated from high school and now goes to UCO and lives on campus. The other one that's transitioned was going to go to UCO, but then COVID hit, decided to go to OCCC and found a friend to live with over in that area. So again, it's independent living with a level of service. So it's not like you just get to live there and do whatever you want. We do have rules and that sort of thing. They have daily contact with an advocate. We have 3 people dedicated to the program. Once a week, they go into their home and make sure everything's okay. And it's not an effort to be like, gotcha, or you're doing wrong. It's really to identify what skills do you lack and how can we help you get to where you need to be. It is transitional, so you can't live there forever, and we're pretty sure you don't want to, but how can we help you get to the next thing? We do charge rent. We think it's very reasonable. The first month is free. The second, so you have time to get a job, that sort of thing. The second and third month is $100. Fourth and fifth is $125, and then it caps at $150. We have an agreement with each resident that if you leave in good standing, meaning we don't have to do major cleaning or major repairs to the home, then we will return 20% to you for your next transition. So it's like a savings account. So it's an incentive for them to contribute. We used to take a percentage. So if they made X amount, we took 20% of what they made. And then in the apartments, we had a resident who figured out that 20% of zero is zero. So if I quit my job, then I don't have to pay any rent. And so although those are great mathematics skills and honestly very good survival skills, that's not what we want. So that's why we went to the flat rate. If a young person finds that they can't pay the rent, obviously we're not going to, evict them or anything like that. It would just be an opportunity to work with them. So what can you do? How do we move to the next thing? And even more importantly, how to communicate it. So again, back to our first resident, when COVID hit, he worked at a restaurant. Those were one of the first things to shut down. And so he came to me and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can do this. I'll do community service. And of course, we're going to maintain his ability to live there. What was most important was that communication. One story I have about a girl that lived on our campus. And I think it just shows and you're welcome to come out and see the tiny homes. If you come in the next couple of weeks, you'd be able to go in and see one, is that everybody wants to build one when they come. Every donor is like, how much does that cost? I'll buy one tomorrow. But what I try to help people understand is we have to have the services and the support to make them successful. So one night, one of our young people she had a situation where she truly was alone in life. So her dad was incarcerated. Her mom had died. She lived with a family member. They died. And so her school counselor contacted us. We got her into a tiny home pretty quickly, but she had a lot of emotional trauma, as I'm sure you can imagine. And so one night her advocate was like, I'm worried about her. And so I said, well, it's about 9 o'clock. I said, I'll just drive up there and see how she is. And so I went and I knocked on the door and she opened it and she was in tears. And the shelter had already come over and knocked and checked on her. And I said, you're probably tired of people knocking on your door, but I just want to be sure you're okay. So I talked to her for a little while and she's like, everybody at school knows I live here. And they're like, this is so cool. How much is rent? What are the rules? How can I get one? She's like, but I have no family and it sucks. And I was like, you're right. That is the reality. And she's like, I'm so thankful for these four walls and this roof. Like, I am thankful for it. She's like, but what matters most to me is that you're standing here right now talking to me, that the shelter did come over and knock on my door and make sure I'm okay. And that I know tomorrow I can call my advocate and they'll be there. And that's why I always say we build it a house and they make it a home, but together as a community, we have to build the humanity inside of it for them to be long-term successful. So that is my pitch on pivots.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Goodrich. What you've done for the community it's truly inspirational, and your organization is amazing. We wanted to open up the floor to some questions to the students, but I'd like to start off with a question.
Sure.
So, thank you. The H&H project focuses specifically on the health issues of the homeless community.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, what health issues are most prevalent among the homeless youth? And thank you again so much for your time. This has been
Yeah.
really great.
Oh, thank you for letting me be here. I would say one of the biggest issues is the lack, like I think part of it is they haven't had medical care in so long that they need the basic initial checkup service. I mean, we've had people in our point shelter, we've had people who've had, one got shot in the leg and had was healing from that. Another person had leukemia. So, I mean, like life-threatening, was having chemo at the hospital and then was being returned to the shelter. But I think overall, it's that basic healthcare and the connection to healthcare that they need. So we really see the spectrum of all of the things that they need. I think vision care is another one that we've seen. Like we've got kids that I don't even know how they're get anywhere because they can't see farther than here. And a lot of times they don't even know it until we're able to get them an eye appointment. Dental care definitely is another situation where they've gone years and years without having any of that. And so that's another thing where we try to get them connected to that as quickly as possible. I think the other thing is prevention. Like if we could move the train back and talk more, and I mean, they're young, so they have a lot of, time and opportunity. Like what does good nutrition look like, right? We used to, before COVID, we had and he was 17 and they were grilling outside and he had never seen raw chicken because everything he'd had his whole life came out of a box, fast food, processed, and all that sort of thing. And so, when you don't have access to quality food, you don't eat the best, and that impacts your health, right? So fresh fruits and vegetables, like what does that mean for a person? Where do I get it? Oftentimes it's more expensive. It doesn't last as long. It's cheaper to, eat not as healthy. So I think those are just some of the areas that we've seen.
Thank you so much.
What motivated you to do what you're doing right now?
I grew up in a family that was service oriented. So my parents actually took care of elderly people. And then I wanted to be a teacher, but I thought I could make more money being a counselor, which I don't think was necessarily true. And I do get to, I guess, as a counselor, was able to teach. And then I love working with young people because, and especially young people experiencing homelessness, because they have the same skills, the same talents, the same dreams. They just have barriers and they don't have the opportunity. And so to be able to walk along them and collaborate with them to be sure that they get to have the same opportunities, to me is an honor and a privilege. And it makes me get up every day and want to go back. So
I have a question. So what do you think we as a group, where most of us are in high school, so what do you think we can do to help out the community?
Yeah. I would say get involved in organizations like most have, like we have a teen service board. So, and we rely on them for different things like fundraising, awareness, leadership development, that sort of thing, and spreading the message, right? I think there's opportunities, like if you had a heart for a project, that organizations are willing to let you partner and proceed with that. So for example, let's say we talk about prevention and you wanted to create something in terms of like, we'd like to educate other young people on what healthy living is. And I'm just throwing out an example of that. I think there's opportunities for that. So people always ask me like, what kind of volunteers opportunities do you have? And I always say, what do you want to do? Because whatever it is, we probably need it and we would probably let you do it. And I think
Thank you.
also young people are going to listen to young people oftentimes in ways that they're not going to listen to adults.
Thank you.
So I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you can finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
So
I'll
my
remember
question,
it. Go ahead.
so my question was, how long does it take for youth to get back on their feet, and like, what is the most difficult thing that youth face when they're going through homelessness?
Yeah. For some, it's like I would say there's no one true answer to that, because for each person, it's probably going to be something different, right? Some have more resources, some are like, have years of it, that sort of thing. I would say right now it's the affordable housing piece, right? So you can get a voucher, especially if you've aged out of DHS custody, right? So you might qualify for a voucher, or you get approved from the housing authority because there's a fast track if you are truly homeless. The problem is there's nowhere to use it, right? Nobody will take it right now. I'm sure you are aware of the housing market. So I have an employee that put their house on the market. They had 34 showings in 2 days, and more than one person offered 20,000 more than they were asking, right? That's the housing market, but the same kind of thing is happening with renting, okay? So if I have a voucher, but 7 other people want to rent this place and they have a full-time job and great credit history, they're going to rent to them, not to me, right? And so I would say that's right now the biggest barrier. And also it's not affordable. So if you're making $12, $13 an hour, are you going to be able to afford $900 worth of rent plus have all your other needs met? Probably not, right? So I think part of it is helping them access all of the programs and helping them be aware of what those programs are. But we also have to help them have the skills to stay housed. So if I give you this apartment and we pay your rent for 6 months, what's your plan in paying it in month 7? Because we better have that, or you're going to be right back where you were before. So I think that's a lot of the barriers they also face, and they're trying to navigate all those things a lot of times with very little support. So I would say on an average, the young people living in our tiny homes is about 18 months. And we continue to support them even after they leave in terms of, again, those basic needs, case management services, therapy, and that sort of thing. Because again, housing first is important, but housing only isn't effective. It has to have all the things.
Are there any other questions from any students? Okay, well, before we end, I just one more question that I personally have. I was wondering how you think that youth in Oklahoma are specifically affected by homelessness.
I think it's misunderstood and it's underreported, right? A lot of times young people don't even realize they're homeless. because they're sleeping on someone's couch. And as long as they've got somewhere to stay, they don't realize that by definition, because they don't have stable housing, that they really qualify in that definition. I actually went to the Oklahoma Commission on Children and Youth. We had a seminar today on like strategic planning to address homelessness. And every school district is required to have a McKinney-Vento liaison, which deals with young people experiencing homelessness, identifying it, all of that sort of thing. And what they were saying is 50% of the school districts in the state of Oklahoma are reporting they have no young people experiencing homelessness. So obviously, even within systems that are already constructed to identify that, they're not even doing it, right? And so I would say one of the difficulties is it's not being identified, therefore they're not being served. And so I think we need to work better collaboratively to have ways that young people themselves can identify and get their needs met. We need more education on what it's like. People are still floored that there's young people out there experiencing homelessness, right? Because again, they think, hey, DHS will pick them up, or no parent would ever kick them out, or certainly no parent would ever move out of the state and leave their young person here. So I think first and foremost, it's educating, and it's growing. People have a better understanding of it, but we still have a lot of work to do to be sure that the general population understands what it is. And most of the time when it's your young person, it's not the person standing on the street corner, panhandling and stuff like that. They're hidden. And they try to survive the best they can, and a lot of times in ways that are not safe or healthy for them.
Well, I think that's all we have time for today.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much, Ms. Goodrich, for coming and talking with us today. Everything that we heard was so informational and amazing to listen to, and we really appreciate your time and your effort. We, the H&H Project, are really looking forward to working with Pivot in the future. And yeah, we thank you again. If there's nothing else, anyone else has to say it? Okay, I think that we're good to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for joining. Bye.